From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher, and their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher, and our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Scripchuk. Their mission: to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Dominating with Dawson.
Ben, we're back again. Vicky and Jen are here. We've got a race coming up. We've got a race coming up in August. It is going to be down at Charlotte.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to be hot.
Popsicles worked.
Popsicles do
In the
work.
Freezer.
We have a plan for the paddock as well. But what we were talking about specifically was hydration, both before and after, as well as during the race, during your stint, because we're going to be in the car for 2+ hours if things go well.
Right.
What is your thoughts on hydration, especially during the racing? Because we're pretty good, because we've competed in a lot of sports that required hydration before and after, but being able to drink or stay hydrated in some way during the race is a foreign concept to you, because you don't usually take a sip of volleyball in the middle of a point. So you don't take a sip of water in the middle of a volleyball point. So
right.
It's so what do you typically do when you know you're going to have one of those 90+ temperature, 90+ humidity track events, and inside the car it's even worse?
I've raced with people who will keep like some sort of water sack or whatever, Camelback or something in the car with them and try to drink out of it, or a drink bottle.
Mm-hmm.
I've attempted to do it one time. Like for me, I have to give myself a little disclaimer here, because I'm a person who wears, if they say you need to have either a 3-layer suit or less than 3 layers with Nomex underwear, I wear a 3-layer suit and Nomex underwear and a balaclava, whether I have to have one or not. So it's tough for me to get like a drink tube in and out of my mouth in the car, because I'm also rocking a full face helmet. So to me, like if I'm going to try to get the drink tube to my mouth, and like I know that there are people who can drill a hole, a little port for their drink tube and have it built into their helmet. But I've never done that because I'm cheap and lazy and from Alabama. So like a little hot drive is not going to bother me that much. So I say all that to say, my hydration routine doesn't involve drinking in the car. I tried it one time with somebody else's drink tube, and I got a bunch of brackish, weird water, and I was like, that's it. I'm not trying to drink water in the car anymore. I'm just trying to win and drive fast. Like, not drinking this gross water. But people can successfully have drink tubes in the car if you can get the apparatus safely to your mouth and whatever, like not wreck. That's great. It's not something that I do. My routine is, and also our team itself is not a team that ever runs cool shirts. We're just cheap and lazy, and we realize that almost every time somebody runs a cool shirt, at least the first time, they slosh so much water out that they get called in because they think they're sloshing gas all over the track. So anyway, we're a path of least resistance team, and we're all from the South, so we don't worry about getting a little bit hot. What I do, and I think what most of my teammates do, is we will chug down a brick of Pedialyte or generic Pedialyte. Drink water all day. Like, drink water all day. Solidly keep drinking water. If you need to pee all the time to do an endurance race, you're doing it right. Like, but you need to constantly be channeling fluids through your filter, which is your whole body. Just keep slamming water. If you're peeing clear, if your pee is clear all day before you're getting in the car, you're in good shape. For me, I like to mildly feel like I need to pee by the time I'm ready to jump into the car and get in there. So if I feel like I could sort of pee and I've chugged my entire brick of Pedialyte, I'm good, because by the time I get out and I've sweated, I'm ready for another, couple of bottles of water, but I'm not dying. Pedialyte, I guess, is some kind of deal. I'm not a scientist. Drink the Pedialyte. Don't drink the Pedialyte. Drink it in the car. But that's what I do. I survive. I get out. My lap times stay consistent, and I'm not in the car like, oh, God, I think I'm going to pass out. When we race, VIR, CMP, Barber, pretty hot places, Road Atlanta. So, that's my routine. But I back all that up by aggressively drinking water the entire time, and then just hitting something like a Pedialyte or Gatorade right before I get in the car. But I think Pedialyte's more concentrated, so it tastes weird. I get the purple ones or the orange ones, and I just gag them down and jump in the car.
Okay. Vicky and Jen, I know Jen got affected by the heat this weekend. What are your thoughts on the hydration and the keeping cool and keeping hydrated? How are you doing? And
I was drinking a lot. Like I don't know. I don't know why I got so sick.
Oh, I've had it get me before. I think it was VIR in July. I was doing HPDE coaching all weekend, and I've been doing everything by the book. Drinking tons of water, drinking Gatorade, eating. Sometimes I'm bad about eating at the track, but I was like, hey, I got to be careful. And even with all that stuff, I'm trying to think. I think I had maybe just look. I was in my early 30s when this happened, and I got sick, hurled all in my car on the way home. Luckily, it was already all gutted. And I just hosed it. It was all Gatorade and water anyway. And I just hosed it out when I got home, but yeah, I've gotten sick from heat exhaustion. I think heat stroke is a way more serious thing, but I got sick with heat exhaustion to the point where I was cold. It was hot as hell, but I was in my house huddled up with a fleece in front of the heater, and then throwing up. It made me sick for a couple of days. So I don't know if that was sort of your experience, but I've had it get me that bad while I was doing everything you're supposed to do.
I mean, I was drinking a lot. I wasn't eating a lot though, and that might be it. I mean. I was just so hot. I wasn't even hungry. Nothing tasted good, Yeah. But thankfully it didn't happen, during the day. It was the very end on Sunday. So
right.
I mean,
it only cost you the one stint where we didn't get to
and
go
they
anyway.
didn't even go out. Yeah. So I really didn't miss anything.
No.
Yeah.
What about you, Vicky? You suck at handling heat.
The heat doesn't really bother me as much, but it was stinking hot. At least Sunday starting out, we had a breeze over at Pitt, but towards the end of the day, when I thought that I had to actually remove my tires to adjust my shocks, I was looking at it going,
it doesn't need to be adjusted that bad, does it?
I know, and I'm sitting there looking, well, what do I know?
Nah, I'm good.
I'm looking at the tire going, I really don't want to do this because it's too much. It's fine. I ran this long on it. But yeah, I mean, we were drinking. The best thing was the popsicles, honestly. They were really good to have.
What flavor? What flavor are we doing?
Flavors.
All flavors.
Oh, so we're talking about green, purple,
the little
pink,
freezy pops. Yeah.
Yeah, we had freezy pops every time the coaches were coming over. I was handing out freezy pops.
Slinging out those sanitized freezy pops. I like it.
Yeah, right. So
you bring up a really important point about kind of taking a look at what you need to do while you're at the track and whether it's worth doing, which includes going out for that third session, that last session, making that adjustment. If that adjustment is going to take you a bunch of effort, it's going to take your focus away from staying alive in your next track session, or reaching a goal. You have to always weigh whether something is worth doing at the track. Am I even going to notice this adjustment? Is this adjustment just me doing something to me doing something? Not saying that's your specific case, but just in general, people at HPDEs, track events or races, especially if you're thinking about is this thing going to put me over the line into being so fatigued I don't want to go out on the track anymore? There may be more benefit to just leaving your car alone and just going out the next time just to see what making no change did, or just see if you learn something different with a different driving approach. But sometimes you have to just protect your energy at the track because it's so mentally taxing while you're on the track, and it's so mentally taxing in the classroom. You're stressing about, did I do this maintenance thing right? There's just so many things stressing you out at the track. If the last thing you want to try is some adjustment that may or may not make a difference, but may make you so fatigued you don't want to even go back out for your last session, it's worth weighing all of those things. But also, in general, if you're not 100% sure you want to go out for any track session, last one, first one, middle one, don't go out. Have you heard that advice before?
Well, I was wanting to take that advice because I really, really felt I couldn't go out on that last one, but I felt like I had to.
No, you don't have to. I mean, we all know that it takes a ton of money to do anything on a racetrack. You've paid a bunch of money to be there, and if you drop a session, you're dropping, if it's a one-day thing, you're dropping probably a quarter of the value of the day, or if it's a, 2-day session, you might be dropping an eighth of the value by skipping a session, whatever it is. But at that point, the value doesn't matter because it's just like going out, collecting poisonous snakes for a science research or something like that. You can't be fatigued and also trying to do something super dangerous. You have to make a choice. Either I can do this safely and stay alive, or
Well, it's
I'm
not
marching.
healthy, but it's also not fair to the other people on the track if you're not 100%. You know,
For sure. That's you have to look outside of yourself as well. But definitely, that's a great point, Jim. You have to just worry about the other folks who are trusting you with their lives on track.
I never thought we were going to start talking about collecting poisonous snakes for a science experiment, but you never know what you're going to get into with dominating with Dawson.
Well, it's funny. I didn't want to go into the whole thing, but I had a teacher. I went to Alabama School of Math and Science, and we had great teachers, and one of the people was a herpetologist who would go to Australia to collect tiger snakes, which are some multiple level more poisonous than whatever we have here, rattlesnakes or whatever. So these things bite you and you die. So their whole routine was, it was a team of this many people who go out, and if you went out you're supposed to be out for 10 hours, but if you went out and in the first hour one person on the team said I feel crappy, the whole team came home, because you needed the entire team to stay alive and to be watching each other's back. So if one person felt off for any reason, it was over. And that's always been, at least in the back of my mind, as far as approaching whether or not I'm fit to go out to run this track session. And also, here's another spoiler alert. I've never skipped a track session, but it's also just because I'm so horny for track time. I don't give a shit what is going on. I'm going to get out there. But that's not the case for everybody.
True. All right. So staying on hydration, the rule that we used to have when I played volleyball competitively was...
Ooh, is there video of this?
There is video, actually.
I've got it. Let's put this in the podcast episode notes, guys. Look for this in the description, down at the bottom, something like that.
I haven't always been the shape of a volleyball. I actually used to play. So
I see it.
It was fun, actually. So the rule was stay hydrated to the point where you needed to pee at least every hour.
Yeah.
And if you got behind, it was almost impossible to catch up that weekend. So it doesn't matter. And the other thing we would typically do is we would do a 1-to-1. We would do one drink of like a sugary drink or a Gatorade type drink, and then one drink of just straight water, because you can't have too much of either, because one will take your electrolytes too high and one will take your electrolytes too low. And honestly, sometimes those sugary drinks, you just can't drink enough of it, because it starts getting that, you just don't want to drink anymore. And that's the
What was that?
It's like,
okay.
Just like
I
that.
thought I heard.
Yeah. It's a technical term. It's kind of like the material you use on a coffee cup to hold the handle to the mug is actually, the technical term is gooey. When you drink too much sweet fluids and it starts getting the flavor in your mouth that you just can't get rid of. It's like,
oh yeah, the Sprite loogie. The Sprite loogie you can't get rid of.
Yeah, or the orange soda one. That one's really deep. So don't get behind in your hydration, because you'll never catch up. So
not catching up.
Not catching up. Not that weekend anyway.
Nope. Not that Monday either, probably.
No, not often. So stay hydrated, stay safe. Good words to live by.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody.
Dominating with Dawson.
Ben, I remember when I was first learning to drive, and I was in this I believe it was a Dodge K car. It was awesome. In driver's training, driver's ed with the gym teacher and the football coach, which was one of the same. And he's got the car, and I'm driving, and it's an automatic and no big deal. And I touched my left foot to the brake pedal, and he jammed on his pedal, pulling us over on a highway to a stop, and says, "Never do that again." And I look at him.
Really?
And I say, never. Yeah. I say, never hit the brake pedal on a highway when I'm driving, because the guy behind us almost killed us. But perhaps there's a second opinion on left foot braking.
So that really happened to you?
Really happened.
Oh, that's crazy.
It was awesome. It was great.
Yeah, there's so much to say about left foot braking and reasons to do it or not to do it. So left foot braking is choosing to apply the brakes with your left foot rather than the typical standard right foot that you would usually do, on the streetcar or something like that. So left foot braking means you just jump on there, and instead of so you just lift your right foot off the throttle and you just slap your left foot down on the brake. Hopefully not at the same time. Some folks kind of blend them coming and going a little bit. But for the most part, it should be separate inputs.
Is it better or worse for certain things?
I like to do it anytime that I'm not shifting gears. So if my left foot is not going to be involved with the clutch at all, and I can just use it interchangeably as I would have used my right foot, I will definitely use my left foot. I like it because it gives me a little bit of flexibility, especially in amateur endurance racing traffic where you just kind of never know what's headed your way. You never know when you might need to just pop your foot on the brake. I like having the flexibility to just have my foot right there all the time to sort of help me manage traffic and be a little bit more versatile and quick to react to what's happening in traffic. So I like that. It's a little bit of free insurance for me.
Okay. Most people I know who are relatively new, maybe even racing for a little bit, their left foot is used to doing one of two things: standing on the dead pedal and keeping them stable, or pushing the clutch, neither of which require a whole lot of finesse as opposed to a brake pedal. So
where do you learn it, right?
Yeah.
That's the $1 million question, because also, with you're trying to learn how to use the brakes with the same sort of forces that you would use to slow the car from 110 miles an hour or 90 miles an hour down to 30 on a racetrack or something like that. So we're talking about applying, putting a bunch of leg down on the pedal. So it's different than what you're going to be doing on the street for the most part. If you're slowing down to come into your neighborhood, you're just touching the brakes a little bit and turning it in. So it's good training. You can sort of teach yourself how to do it on the street a little bit, but it's not going to be the exact same magnitude of the input that you're going to do on the track. But yeah, you want to learn. I taught myself the mechanics of it on the street, and the very first time I tried it, I stood whatever car I was driving, I stood it up on its nose, and I'm sure I've scared half the traffic around me. But that's how I started learning how to do it, and get a feel for it, just a very basic feel for it, was to try to learn how to discipline myself to do it on the street. But I also try to stick everywhere. Every car I've ever had has always been a stick, so it kind of helps me learn how to do it in the right rhythm.
So much like the semi-famous story at Thompson, where the guy walks up to me and goes, "This is where you need to start to learn how to heel and toe downshift. This is also the best thing to do, is just go out and pick a race and start left foot braking." Is this what you'd recommend?
No. At least my experience and sort of the anecdotal experience I hear from other people is that they usually sort of start touching on it on the street just to sort of get the mechanics of it down, and then they go from there.
So is this a nice to have, or is this a requirement, or is this a use it? It's probably better, but you don't have to do it, or what do you think?
That's a great question. There are plenty of championship level drivers. Alex Zanardi was never a left foot breaker. The famous Alex Zanardi, who dominated that race at Laguna Seca in kart and was pretty good in Formula One. But one of the reasons he wasn't great in Formula One was those cars are designed for left foot braking, and he just kind of never caught on to it. So he couldn't ever really adapt to it. But in general, the kind of level we're talking about, it doesn't matter really one bit. I mean, there are plenty of guys you can watch, plenty of good spec me out at championship level, like SCCA runoffs videos where there are guys who just never heel toe, they never left foot brake and that sort of thing, and they do fine. But so it's not necessarily something that's going to add take away from your lap time, but it definitely gives me more control over what's happening with the car and balancing the car on sort of, I think, a finer edge than if I was trying to have to move my right foot from pedal to pedal. I like having the versatility and just that extra little bit of control that I get from left foot braking. And I think it helps me get on the brakes faster into a turn where I'm not going to be not active with the clutch. I can really hit the brake exactly where I want to. Where it's a little bit tougher to swing my foot from the throttle position to the brake position if I'm only using my right foot.
So it's really a function of just a little less coast.
I think so. Yeah, I think it gives me a little less coast, and I get to be a little bit crisper with my inputs, and I feel like I'm more in control. But on the flip side of that, there are plenty of folks who could beat me on track who aren't doing it. So I don't know that it's exclusive to speed, but it's exclusive to my comfort and what I'm used to.
Okay, so nice to do, not required, but something you should probably be working on?
That's my feeling. I think it's personal for everybody, and it's one of those things where I think if you were working your way up through driving development, and maybe say you've gotten pretty good at hitting your marks on track and car placement, and your timing is pretty good with where you're starting to brake and that sort of thing, you're getting to an advanced level of driving. And I'd say this is something that I would approach after I've gotten rev matching and heel toe shifting down. This is something I would do after that. But also, like I said, it's not required. And also the other side of that is maybe you work your way up. You're really smooth with rev matching. You're putting the car where it needs to be all the time. You feel like you're using the available grip that you can get out of the car, and then you decide to throw left foot braking in there, and you think, this is where I need to blast over my plateau where I am. I need left foot braking to get me there. But then you try it, and you're like, this sucks. I can't do it. And you never get a good feel for it. Bail on it. It's not going to make it any faster, really. But don't hinge your whole track racing progression on left foot braking. It's great to have if you can get it down. If it's not, move on.
Right, and like you said, I've heard of some people who do this professionally, and they just don't get it, or they don't like it, or they don't have the touch that they're comfortable.
Doesn't work for them. Yeah, it doesn't work for them for whatever reason. But still, if they go out there and run faster laps than the people that are doing it, or they run faster laps than me while I'm trying to do it, then it's working for them. So it's all about the numbers, and I mean, I think left foot braking is a comfort thing and something that I can't imagine racing without, but you can.
So it's not the cake. It might not even be the icing, but it's definitely a sprinkle.
Yeah, buddy.
All right, very well. I'm going to go have me a cupcake. All right, thank you, everybody.
Dominating with Dawson.
Ben, you can come anytime you want. Post baby 2. Don't worry.
All right.
We'll work around your schedule.
We got you.
Got you. All right. I'm just going to do them in the order. So.
All right.
Welcome back, Ben.
Thank you.
We've got a question. We do the endurance racing, so we have pit stops where we'll do putting the fuel in, get the driver out, get the driver in, and we were wondering, because we don't really know the answer. What should the driver coming out of the car? Is there any information that they could give to the driver going in the car, or perhaps, because it's kind of loud on the pit, perhaps there's something that they should be telling the other drivers that are in the paddock after the pit stop? It seems like there's an opportunity there. We're just not sure what we're supposed to talk about, I guess.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, it's a great topic to talk about. And one thing to even roll back a little bit earlier in the sequence to think of is if you have radios where the driver can radio into the pit, it's always a good time to be making sure somebody's listening, make sure somebody hears you while you're talking. Sometimes as a driver, you might be talking for 10 minutes and realize nobody's even listening or on the radio. But it's good to establish communications with your pits if you can. As you're driving during the stint, let them know things you're discovering, like, oh, wow, the track condition, that you let them know about track conditions, let them know, maybe this has changed since last time we were here, and now you can run turn 5 flat out or something like that. So there may be individual things you can be telling the pit, and then that person can relay it to all the team drivers. So you can be delivering good information as you on the fly as you run your stint, and as well as when you come in, just to sort of back that up a little bit.
What would be good information, though, I guess, is kind of the, the track is gray, the walls are white, probably not going to help a whole lot unless don't hit the white stuff. But, what would be useful?
Definitely, you want to let people know how the track feels, whether a lot of times after a rain, the track doesn't have much rubber on it. It hasn't gotten rubbered in. It doesn't have the optimum grip yet, or if it's beginning to have changing grip conditions due to precipitation. That's something that you want to relay. That's good information that people need to know, and especially if it's raining or wet or a transitional track, you want to let folks know, hey, it's really slick in this turn or that turn, or let somebody know, hey, you've got more grip than you would expect here and there. Something like that. Those are some things that can help your team be more competitive as you ride. Some little inside knowledge about the track conditions can be useful. I've also
so we weren't too far off when I did a driver exchange with Mental on Road Atlanta, and I said, be careful when you come out of the pits because turn 1 is just a solid rainbow going up the hill. Probably good for him to know because somebody decided to add a little extra fluid to the water. So
Yeah, that is essential information. Let people know, especially if there's a bad characteristic of an area of the track, or if there's a bad characteristic of the car. Maybe the brakes will start fading after a few laps, and you need to kind of back off the brakes and dial it down to 7/10 while the brakes cool down, or something like that. There might be some stuff that you can't let them know. Also, if you want to be conscious of this, if you've lost your radio communication during a stint, you want to kind of be building up a download of stuff you want to let them know as you come in. So at least in my mind, I've had that happen more times than I like to admit, but you've lost your radio for some reason or another. And I'm trying to think, I got to let them know, okay, I think it's pushing here or something like that. Maybe think of the things you want to recommend. They can adjust while you're getting out of the car. Things like if you're in an endurance stint, you just want to say, hey, maybe we need to drop 3 pounds out of the right rear. Keep that in your mind if you can't deliver the information instantly, because that's still something that you can do typically in an endurance race setting, and somebody can go out there and make a minor adjustment like that. So it's always good to have in your mind what you want to say if you can't deliver it real time.
Okay, so let's pretend that we were going to tell them that we wanted to change the air pressure. Mm-hmm. How would we, as the driver, know that? For those at home, not we're trying to help everyone else.
I mean, it's essentially the answer is hopefully you've had a chance to test your car a lot before you're competing with it, and you sort of get a chance as you test and sort of know, like, okay, if the car is displaying this handling characteristic that needs a change, if it's not neutral or something else, then it likes this kind of air pressure change or this kind of sway bar change. But hopefully you had a chance to test and tune a little bit with your car. Even if you're relatively new, you can just go out and say, oh, this thing is doing this now, I want to try something else. And so you'll at least hopefully have some frame of reference for adjustments or modifications that you can make that will make a change to your car. I know that's not an answer everybody wants to hear. I know everybody wants to build a car and just hit the track, but it kind of takes a little bit of work to understand this car likes this sort of change. And here's how the car drives.
Yeah, I was kind of getting off the subject of the question, but I was just like, well, while we're here. So you've got a limited amount of time with a driver getting in and a driver getting out. So there's only so much you can cover there. You cover kind of how the car is behaving.
Right. Conditions of the track.
Track's behaving. And if you the other thing that we've done is we've talked about other cars, like, hey, this car is super fast, or hey, this car is super scary, or this car is super slow, or we've got an IOE going around the outside of the track, so just be careful, stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that point. As far, I hate to ever say, like, yeah, you really have to let the team know to watch out for these guys that are driving like a bunch of turkeys or whatever, but it happens. I mean, I don't know how it happens, but sometimes groups of drivers flock to a certain team. So sometimes it's valid to say, hey, watch out for this whole car. I mean, because also you can't tell who's in the car. So if you've had one car run afoul of you, that guy's going to be in the car with one of your teammates on the track at some other point. So anyway, yeah, so I'll definitely will try to warn about, here's a car that's, splashing gas all over the track to watch out for, or somebody that's behaving suboptimally.
Yeah, a little aggressive on the turns and passes and stuff. And
sure,
we had one car, I think we were talking about, that they were faster than we were in the car we were in, but when they got past you, a quarter inch was plenty, and then they wanted the line back.
Yeah,
and it can be disconcerting, especially if you're giving it to somebody who's relatively new, to have somebody come crashing across the bow, shall we say, with can shake them up a little bit. So you just let them know.
Well, hey,
Vicky, Jen.
Sorry, let me dive in real quick there 1 second, because it's a real kind of a dangerous topic that just came up, which is trying to make sure that you fully completed the pass. I know this is not what our topic is about, but this is definitely, we've had teammates run afoul of this too, but being fully certain that you fully passed the other car before you try to get back online can be very dangerous. So if somebody's doing that, like whipping back across your bow, with a very short distance, there's almost never a time that you need to do that in racing, unless it's, I would guess, maybe a highly competitive sprint racing scenario. But there should never be a time where somebody's chopping across your bow like that. And you're exactly right. If that's happening, it's something you want to let the whole team know about as soon as you know about it. And that's one of those things where if you know about it and you have communication to the pit, it's better to tell them and make sure somebody hears it as it's happening, because you're going to pile up 20 things you need to let go of when you get out if you don't kind of relay information as it's happening. But that's very good information to have. And just to reiterate, it's always essential to make sure you've completed a pass. Like, make sure you can see enough of that car in the rearview mirror to know you fully by them before you try to swing back online. And also even evaluate if you need to aggressively swing back on your line at the time you made the pass. If it's kind of near in the brake zone or something like that, you may just need to modify your line in the brake zone. It's not always essential just to jump right back in front of the person that you passed. So think about it. Be very careful doing that. We've had teammates wreck doing that, doing it too soon, and I've seen it happen way too many times. So that's one of the places, especially where two tires can come together, or a tire can touch metal, and you can have really bad damage to both cars. So be very careful.
And I would even venture to say that sometimes when you are aggressively, getting back online or cutting off the car that you just passed, it's probably not the fastest thing for your car, because you're setting up the weight transfer in the wrong direction for where you're trying to go.
Sure, it should really have to make sense for you to want to whip back online. Like, I know everybody, it's nice to like pull out and make a pass and get the full resolution in your mind of like rejoining the line where you were, but you have to make sure that it's something that's geometrically necessary or smart.
Yep.
Anyway, sorry for the detour.
And no, well, especially if it's an endurance race. I mean, if it's a really high, a high level sprint race, and the cars are all the same, and there's thousands of dollars of sponsorship money or blah 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 blah. It's different than if it's the low cost endurance racing that we typically do.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff you do if you're not whipping checks for whatever you're about to wreck.
Pretty much, yeah. Good plan. So, Miss Jen, Miss Vicky, you're going into the car. What would you like to know? Is there stuff that we've successfully transferred to you getting in the car, or do you guys just want to just get in the car and let me concentrate, or is there something that we could do that would make it easier for you guys getting in?
I just want to know what condition the car's in when I hop in. Are we feeling some, like he was saying, some looseness anywhere in the car? Is the back end getting light? If it was the truck, how light is the back end getting? And are we having any brake fade? Mm-hmm. Is it pulling to one side? Is there any wobbles in the front? And if there's any particular turns I should be careful of.
Okay.
Sure.
Miss Jen?
I agree with all of that. As far as you mean like using the radios and communicating with the driver. Kate did such an amazing job that one race.
She really did.
She really did. And I don't know that we've ever been able to replicate that race. She just really was on top.
Did you have a spotter? You had somebody working as a spotter?
She was almost a spotter and a crew chief in one.
We did. Kate was a spotter.
Yeah.
It was, but she knew everything that was going on in the track. Like and it wasn't only helpful, I think, for the driver, it was helpful for the rest of the team. Like, it was just good to know what was going on. So, yeah.
We didn't realize how valuable a spotter was.
You really don't. And again, like I said, I don't think we have ever been able to successfully replicate that race where she did so well doing that. Yeah.
Well, after that race was where we did buy the radios so that everybody on our team, and we haven't gotten to try it since then. So.
And then COVID kicked in too.
Yeah, we bought them all. Yeah. But maybe working on that. Yeah, because that was so helpful. I mean, even I wasn't even in the car, and I thought it was helpful.
All right, we've only cut you off like 5 times, Ben.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, having a spotter is invaluable in any form of racing, but especially in endurance racing. And there are so many teams that put a ton of time, effort, and money into their effort, including our team, but then don't go the extra mile to make sure one other teammate or somebody else you bring to the track is, standing there doing something at least more than just calling them when the green flag drops. So it's having a spotter could be something that could make you a lot better as a team, and so few people do it. So few teams choose to do it. So I don't know why. We don't either.
It doesn't just have to be one person either. You can have a big track, and you can have 2 or 3 people out there.
Yeah, ideally you've got every inch of track covered, and you got a whole staff of people doing that. But it seems so easy to at least put a couple people out there.
They can even bring sandwiches. They don't have to, you know.
They can bring a sandwich.
But you know how it is when you're in an endurance race, like when you're done or when you're not driving, kind of the last thing you want to do is be doing anything else.
Right?
At least
Exactly.
I'm so lazy. Yeah, all I want to do is drive and then not be doing anything.
Yeah, you definitely need a little bit when you're getting out. All right, so we got a driver exchange. Now the last driver comes out. They head back to the paddock, decompress a little bit. Probably should give some details to the upcoming driver or drivers. What could they talk about? What should they talk about? What would be a good kind of post-flight debrief for the rest of the team?
So at the end of an event?
No, like, so let's say that you drove first stint and I drive second stint and Vicky and third and Jen's going fourth. You get out, I get in, I'm on the track, right. You got your drink, you changed your race suit. What should or could you and Vicky and Jennifer talk about for their upcoming one and you coming out?
Well, if you all happen to be in the pit together, that's a great time to do a little bit more granular download of information and say, all right, aside from all the things I was able to shout across the radio, here are a few more things like, as it happens today, the way the car is working, you can break a little deeper into this turn, or there might be a little more detail that you can get across in an in-person
better line, whatever
debrief. Yeah, I just like saying the word debrief.
You know what we could use? We could use our big track maps.
Yeah, sure.
Go have meetings and dry erase markers and.
Yeah, I mean, among when I get to the dry erase marker board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got a few of them for the different tracks we tend to go to over and over and over.
When I hang around with the fast guys,
Bill's done that several times.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So the fast guys do what?
Sorry. So when we're talking about downloading information, when you're talking to people who are sort of at a similar level to your own driving, hopefully you can say some things that will make sense, like, hey, I was able to break a lot deeper into here or there, or even down to, if you're driving the same vehicle, like, oh, hey, I was able to get away with wait until right after the one here, like really very, very detailed information, like, I was grabbing fourth right here in this car. So you can all make sure that you're being consistent and pushing everything to the limit. So you may come out and the guy that, if you're all similar level, the guy who drives third or fourth at the end of the day may end up fastest because they've been able to benefit from everything everybody else learned during the day and kind of put together an optimal lap time or something like that, or a really good performance. Hopefully that's the goal.
Yeah, you could. I always think that you could talk about not only where you brake, but how hard you brake.
Right, sure.
Because it may be, I can jam on the brake at the 1.5, but the car goes in upset. Whereas if you go in with like medium pressure at the 2.5, but come off earlier, that may get the car a little more settled and may be able to go around a turn. And we can have those discussions after, but not at the driver exchange on the pit road, because we're not going to start debating with a track map there. So
right,
there's opportunities.
Yeah, and like if you meet me at the track and we start talking about how things are going on track, eventually I'm probably going to push your shoulder to talk about how hard I'm braking in a brake zone for how long, like I'll twist you around and stuff like that. I'll start jerking you around like you're a race car, but yeah, that's kind of how you end up sort of relating how the car's doing. But yeah, you're not gonna be able to do that during the driver change. During the driver change, you're just like, hey, the 3-4 shift is getting really crunchy, so just try to stay in fourth, and it's getting real wobbly coming out of here. Like, you only have a chance to deliver a couple of essential nuggets of info as you're strapping the other person in, because it's really loud out there. So just get the most important stuff that's going to keep the car surviving. Just get that out there, and hopefully they go out and do okay, and you can give them the rest over the radio.
Yep. Agree, Miss Vicky?
I agree.
Do you concur, Miss Jen? Lovely that you shake your head on
Yes,
an audio podcast, so thank you.
I render my full consent as well.
Listen, I
All
didn't
right, very
only
well.
shake my head. I gave you a thumbs up.
You did.
Wow, I need my guitar.
So I will take this opportunity as a chance to demonstrate the level of detail and communication that we have on our team. So Miss Jen gets out of the car, Vicky's getting in the car, and she grabs Vicky by the shoulders with a big old smile and says, "You're gonna love this."
That's all you need.
That was our driver.
That was all I
exchange
needed.
communication.
That's all you needed. And did you?
That's great.
Did you?
I had a great time. It was awesome.
All right,
That's
very
true.
well. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
Go.
Thanks, Ben.
Dominating with Dawson.
All right, Ben, we're back again. Guess what?
Hello.
We're going to talk about racing for once. We don't ever talk about racing too much. We talk about it in general, more along the lines of how to get better. But in racing, there's certain things. Some people call it racecraft. Some people call it gamesmanship. Some people call it playing within the lines or between the lines. What are some of the things that you can do that will benefit you and you can learn to do and they'll help you on the racetrack that aren't how your steering inputs are, how your throttle inputs are, how your turn in is? What else could we do?
Well, sure. This is. I was thinking of one of these kind of things just this week, and just in specific is the way you work the flags in racing. The way you are aware of watching the flag stations for caution flag is always necessary for your safety, but you can also use the flags to your advantage in traffic when it comes to monitoring the flag conditions at a restart. Maybe you can get a couple positions on a restart, watching around the course as cautions come up, so you can maybe take advantage of a caution you see early, and maybe you can get a chance to pit. So maybe you could just being aware of the flags can let the guys in the pits know, hey, I see what I think is going to be a full course caution coming up. Like I just saw this thing happen, and I think it's going to bring out a full course. So just being aware of the flags and what's likely to happen with emergency vehicles. If you see something that you think is bad enough, like, oh, that car's stopped, they're going to have to bring out a thing, and I know I'm within 10 minutes of needing to pit. Maybe you can use the flags to your advantage in that way. So there are a few things you can do just by being aware of the flags and race conditions that I think you can use to your advantage. So that's what we're talking about today.
So if you see, double yellow or yellow, it doesn't really matter. Double yellow meaning the whole course, and yellow meaning a segment of the course. If you see the flag stations start to drop, or if you have somebody on the radio saying, hey, the flag in turn 6 just dropped and you're sitting over at turn 1, you know that it's either coming or at least you're prepared to go, and you're saying try to get a jump on people because you can pass them on the restart.
That's right, and I'm saying just also we can sort of in general be aware of course condition and how it's going to tie into flags. So you can see a caution coming as you see it, and it's going to happen while you're out there. And also you can be like, I monitor the cleanup as it's happening and be like, all right, I think we're probably a lap or two away from green, and I start talking to my pit, asking them to maybe call the green flag for me. Or if it's a lot of times it might be a something that's a local yellow, and you can just see, all right, this thing's about to wrap up and they're going to pull this local yellow flag. It might be a situation also like in Lemons where I don't think Lemons doesn't throw a green flag every time. I think they just pull the caution,
pull it in. Yeah.
So and I think that's an excellent element of Lemons competition is that you don't really form up behind a pace car. Everybody just slows down, and you just have to ride around watching the flag station, because as soon as that flag disappears, you can hit the gas and go. So I love doing that. Limits traffic and just in race traffic in general. I just want to be more aware of what's happening with the flags and the people around me in traffic, because I'm going to use it to my advantage while they're asleep or just not really as ready to go as I am. So I will pull offline and limits traffic, get out of the way to be able to see the next flag station, because sometimes you come around, there's a second or two where you can't see the next flag station. So I will hustle around. I'll even give myself a gap between the next car so I can run around and minimize the time where I can't see the flag station. Like I'm that much into playing the flag game, especially in Lemons, but all the time. And Champ Car is the same kind of thing where, they'll just kind of the yellow disappear or the green will drop. And so, if you're not on the ball, you can get caught snoozing and miss some positions. But also, like I always say, we're not the guys with the most powerful car. So, any little thing we can do as far as working the flags to our advantage is something that's important for us. So whether if it's a real restart with a green flag or just the flags disappearing, I want to be all over it.
Jennifer, do you use the flags? How much do you use the flags?
I do use the flags, and I find that every time that I go out, I am more aware of the flags. And I got to be honest, in the beginning, it was really hard to focus on that. I mean, I knew that I needed to, but there was so much going on around me. Like that wasn't like that kind of, I just noticed that I'm much more aware of them now. So,
So,
I
so you're starting to, let me just clarify. Are you starting to focus on the flags, or are you starting to open your eyes up so that you can see more
Yes.
and you're using a peripheral? Or is
Yes.
or is it a brain, I'm getting more used to all the inputs and I'm being able to do these things?
Right. I'm just getting more used to, and I guess more comfortable with what's going on around me, that I can like focus on other things. Because I know Vicki and I talked about early on, like there's just so much stimuli coming in. Do you know what I mean? Like especially at the HPDEs, you're trying to focus on the instructor and what they're telling you, and then the flag stations, and then the other cars that are around you, in front of you, and back of you. So, and then of course, if you're racing, people trying to pass you. So, yeah, when you first go into it, there's just so much that you don't know and are not familiar with, that's not, I mean, they're important, and you do your best to try and see every single one and pay attention, but yeah.
And you're also trying to incorporate all of the stuff that you've learned at the same time. So you're making all these micro decisions as you're driving while you're worrying about all these external inputs coming in at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a lot in the beginning.
It is a lot. And if you're not used
You don't know how to drive a stick.
Well, not even that, but like if you're not like somebody who has been into racing your whole entire life and everything's new. Like when I first started with you guys, I had no idea what the flags meant. It wasn't anything that I was even aware of. So I was learning all of that like the very first time. So trying to remember what color went with what, and so it's a lot, like in the beginning. If you don't like grow up in that, or haven't done it for a long time before you get out there.
Sure. Yeah. I'm a hyper keyed in on all this stuff because everything else is pretty automatic because I've been at this for a long time. But when we first start out, we're just trying to keep the car headed in the right direction on the track and live.
Not being roller chicane.
Yep.
Well, right. Just try to be safe. But yeah, and as you folks are developing, you're starting to be able to do, like Bill started to say, is it this? Are you able to do it because of this? To me, it sounded like it was all those things: added brain capacity. Your eyes are able to take in and assimilate more things that are happening at the track as they make sense, because you're learning an entire language of competition and track driving. And so a lot of repetition and just comfort level will make it so that you're eventually able to play head games from the best of us.
And that's a good way of putting it. It's like learning another language almost.
Yep.
With everything.
Yeah.
But you really need to, as quickly as possible, you really need to have those flags be automatic. You gotta know, like red, what do I do?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, the reds are the easy ones.
The red, the yellow, the green, and the black are easy, but
it's occasionally when that meatball shows up, or when that stripe one shows up, you're just like, wait a minute,
blue with the
I'm
yellow.
not used to seeing that.
Yeah.
So that does bring up a point, Ben. You said to use the flags to your advantage when you're racing. So does that mean that you're a strong proponent of driving around the track with the blue and yellow flag out your window?
Just waving it for yourself.
Just waving it for yourself, yeah.
Y'all come on now.
No. I'm saying those other people, they need to know to get out of my way.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just paint my whole car that color.
Exactly.
I think that's a good idea. I definitely think that playing the games with the flags, when you get to the level of doing that, you can definitely use it to your advantage, and people will you can make up a lot of spots on people who are snoozing. I think back to when I was racing go-karts. I was racing karts on a dirt oval, and it was just it was direct drive. It was just a big big clutch in one gear, and we would have restarts, and everybody would just line up just straight, just one big straight line, like a pencil full of go-karts riding down the track. And I would just duck out so I could see the light. Like everybody, the people were all lined up where you had your helmet right behind the next guy's helmet. They couldn't see the light. I would offset my cart by like half a lane so I could see the light. And as soon as it went green, I would pass 2 or 3 guys. Like every time, nobody ever caught on. Like I am going to pull out a little bit and pass some of y'all. Like I never had the best motor, so usually at least half of them would give me back. But I didn't have much of an advantage, but I would definitely try to use the flag to my advantage. And these dummies I was racing with, I would just shoot by 1 or 2 of them every time. Like I don't know why nobody else did that. I definitely am a huge fan of playing the flag game.
Okay.
And
it helps you
about that.
And it helps you in a DE. Also, as you're driving a DE, one of the things they hammer is you being aware of flag stations. And after you've done enough lemons racing, that is just not even something you have to think about. So you'll never miss a black flag or any kind of cautions like a bunch of DE only jabronis will.
Jabronis.
We had
little PA word for you guys.
With NASA Great Lakes, in order to go from 2 to 3, you have to pass a written test and you have to pass a driving test. But on that weekend, they also have a random black flag test. And if you miss your black flag, you can't advance.
Good. Sounds good.
Yep. But if you drive lemons, you don't miss the black flags. They're like, how'd you see that? I'm like, I drive lemons. My car breaks a lot. I get lots of these. No problem.
But the lemons making the flags such a huge competition element by making the fact that anytime you mess up or miss a flag, that's going to take you off the track, and that becomes an element of competition. Like that can sideline you. It makes you hyper aware of that, and it makes you a safety conscious freak just because you don't want to lose time on the track. But it's another amazing thing about lemons is that it prepares you so well for so much other driving on track and racing. It's a great place to go learn.
Yep, and you will not pass under yellow, and you will not miss a black flag.
Yep, never again.
Nope. Penalty is huge. All right, Ben. Are we done playing with flags?
I'm done with that. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you, Ben.
Dominating with Dawson.
So, Ben, Vicky had this great question she wanted to ask you. And in my head, I'm going, well, I'll tell you first the question. She wants to know what you're thinking for pre-race thoughts, in the race thoughts, and post-race thoughts. And to my mind, I said, knowing Ben, he's going to be like, I don't think, just drive. But somehow we'll get around to a turn at VIR. But Ben, what are you thinking about your thinking process, and or maybe what your thinking process should be or could be?
Sure. You're right. I'm 100% guilty of just rolling up the track and hitting it without putting a lot of thought into what I'm doing. But when I do it, when I'm thinking about pre-race, I'm excited about the fact that I'm going to go to the track and get to do the one thing that really kind of lets me cut loose without thinking about anything else. I kind of get into my flow state. I'm excited about the fact that I'm going to kind of get to go experience the pinnacle of my existence. So that's sort of what I'm usually thinking about. If it's a car that I'm financially responsible for, or I'm the person who's in charge of making sure it's all wrenched up and ready to race, I'm probably thinking about the checklist and other things I've got to do to still make sure it's ready. When I roll up to the tech line, I probably still got 2 or 3 things like I'm going to be slapping numbers on or decals on in the tech line. So there's always for me a running checklist that I've built going into an event. I hate to admit to putting that much thought into it, but especially if it's a car that I'm responsible for making sure it's ready to race, then I'm going to make sure it's good to go. So, and my process for that is just beginning to get the car ready. And as I come across one thing, I think about 3 other things to be done. And I'll just go onto my list. And it's never an absolute list, but usually it's going to be pretty good to get me there. So that
you don't think about, like laundry or
this is Ben.
Yeah.
I do. My checklist includes like, hey, this race is going to be cold and wet in the middle of October. How about I bring 3 extra towels and make sure I got a couple extra pairs like underwear. So, I'm doing that sort of stuff. I'm coming to the track. I'm thinking about the conditions that are going to be around. Because also I'm slumming it every single time I ever go to the track. So it's not like I'm lucky to me just head to my trailer. Like we show up in an open trailer, and we're lucky to even put an easy up. So usually I'm thinking about how the weather's going to affect my body. So yeah, I think about sort of all that sort of stuff. And that sort of piles all into my checklist. But as far as like thinking about like I'm going to be driving a 113 horsepower Miata, and the field is mostly comprised of this, and this, and I'm going to be on a left-hand only track. I'm not really kind of thinking at that sort of level of detail, but I usually just sort of adjust to that when I get there.
Vicky?
Well, my particular experience, especially going on a track, is I think about the track going on. Look at the track going on. As I start off, I start getting exciting, but the tracks that I am not familiar with, and especially the scariest one that I had ever driven had to be Laguna Seca. And my in-thought racing was the F word a lot. As I was hitting every turn.
Fantastic?
Well, let's just say it was oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap.
So can
And
you
trying
tell,
to calm myself down.
right? But so what particularly was prompting you to say that? Like, were you going in and trying to think like, crap, I'm too fast. Oh crap, I'm too slow. Oh crap, I'm in the wrong place.
Actually, it would probably have to have been the corkscrew. The corkscrew, every time I hit that corkscrew, because it's almost, when you first hit the top of the peak, it was almost kind of going in blind, and then it dropped off.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you have no idea where you are, right?
No,
And
it's
was
dead blind. It's not almost blind.
Yeah, it was absolutely frightening as I was driving this thing.
That's so funny. That's crazy because to me, I did the corkscrew a few times, expecting that to be the highlight of every lap, and like I did it a couple times. I was like, "Oh, this thing's like a speed bump to the fun parts of the track." So I completely started ignoring the corkscrew as soon as I got there.
Right. Well, after a while, I started getting better with it. Of course, it was
Right.
also the vehicle that I was driving. Also, it was a front wheel, something I've really never driven before,
Sure.
and
And
it was a very hard car to handle for me.
Super
So it got better, but I have to say that it probably is not the place to learn how to drive an unfamiliar car
sure.
on
Yeah,
a track that is equally as scary. I don't think that I would do that again.
the one time I got to race at Laguna Seca, this is me after me owning a Miata for years and years and being pretty good at kind of tuning on the Miata. The one time I got to race at Laguna Seca was in a Miata that was like the same generation as mine. So like there was no leap in learning as far as learning the car. So I could completely relate to having to show up in a place
Right.
like that. Learn a whole different style of car and a new track.
I think I would be much better if, like I said, if we had our own cars,
Mhm.
being familiar with how that car handles versus just sometimes the arrive and drives. So you know,
it's
they're
tough.
tricky. They're tricky.
Yeah, definitely can be. I've been there.
All right, so you're in your race, you're thinking. What about after the race, when you first get out of the car?
I'm sorry. I didn't know we were already through with the thinking in the middle of the
No,
race.
we're not. I just it got quiet, so I keep going.
I was going to hear you were like, I have stuff to say about what I think about in the middle of the stint, like while I'm driving. So like,
Okay.
Vicky was like, "Oh crap, yeah, this is terrible," blah blah blah. I definitely have plenty of those feelings when I'm in a car, but usually I think my driving is pretty consistent, so I'm not usually like focusing on like I need to brake here and this sort of thing. But just generally, sometimes if the car is not a joy to drive, or it's not handling as well as I hoped it would, or if it's too hot, or if I'm just in a crappy mood, you know what I mean? If I'm just salty that day, it could be any number of things. But like I'll definitely, we'll keep a clock somewhere in the car, even if it's like a Velcro, digital wristwatch, Velcroed onto a roll bar somewhere. We usually have some sort of way to tell what time it is and how long you've been in the car, which usually ends up being miserable for me because I drive and think like, especially if it's a stint that's just not any fun, you're just driving. And I should clarify, not any fun is still 100% more fun than being at work or having to have somebody talk to you out in public that you want to talk to. So still very, very fun, just not the ideal of what you hoped for. So you're whining about working in a pie factory. But I find myself getting sort of relatively miserable in a stint, and I will let myself look at the clock, and I think like, I've been out here an hour and a half, or 2 hours. Surely it's been an hour and a half at this point. I'm looking at maybe how the fuel's going, and I'm looking, I realize it's only been a short amount of time. So that's my thing. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this? Like, I know how to drive. Like, why am I showing up here, showing up, doing endurance racing over and over again? So yeah, there's definitely times where I hit malaise and like, what the hell's going on here? I just want to get out. I mean, I've never pulled in early, but also I've thought about it.
I know that when when I'm racing, and especially again the tracks that I'm way familiar with, very comfortable on them. I pay attention to fuel, pay attention to my time, although I want to start doing that less. Actually, I think I would be very comfortable if the timer was taken out of the car.
Yeah,
and not worry about fast lap.
I'm not looking at timer ever usually myself.
But sometimes I kind of get in a groove, and I kind of get like this a hum song or an earworm song in my head, and it just kind of helps me kind of go into the turns, kind of brings the adrenaline down a tiny bit.
Sure.
The over adrenaline, and just kind of get into a chill zone and start driving, but still paying attention to where my turns are, looking ahead. That's the other thing I'm always trying to do, is remind myself to do things when I know that I'm doing things wrong, like not looking ahead, like trying to snap myself out of a zone if I get too comfortable in a zone. Sometimes you have to keep reminding yourself as a new driver to do these things.
You have to remind yourself of the stakes every once in a while, right?
Right.
Because it's easy to kind of zone out, like, all right, I'm just nailing this. And all of a sudden, so somebody comes zooming by that you weren't expecting, or you come up on a really slow car, like, okay, wait, we can all die doing this. But yeah, but you're right. There's some value in hitting a rhythm and kind of getting in a routine, because the more of that kind of stuff you do, the more it just becomes muscle memory. The more all of the stuff that you were worried about, the first few HPDE events you did with, like the blocking and tackling, like the braking, where to turn in, where to shift the gear. Once you get into the flow of race traffic and you're having like, I got to dodge this guy, I'm trying to pass in between these two guys. Like once you start doing all that, hopefully all the blocking and tackling, shifting and steering is muscle memory at that point. And definitely race traffic will help you get there, but it's all just seat time.
Yeah. And I think usually in the first part of the race, I'm, like I said, I'm usually talking myself through what needs to happen, and whether I did something wrong, I kind of mentally tell myself, okay, I could do that better the next time around, to remember to okay, instead of slowing down at the 3, maybe I should, do a hard brake at the 2 and start, kind of going in a little bit better, knowing that I did something wrong, going, but try not to beat myself up over it at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. Like, so in your example, so maybe you, in your instance, you braked at the 3 marker, and you found yourself still having to like drive up to the apex. You're like, I broke too soon, and I'm still going to drive up to the corner. So that's a good realization to have as a developing driver, to realize like, I put this input in at the wrong time. I need to adjust my timing. So here's a good rationalization to say, all right, that seemed pretty early enough to the 3, so I'm going to try the 2. Your answer may still end up being that you're in a car that's not carrying enough steam that you could brake at the 1 or after the arrow.
Right.
When I drove a Miata with good R-Comp tires on it at VIR, I could brake after the arrow on the backstretch, like after the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 arrow. After that, I would brake and I would still be fine. So just completely car dependent and experience dependent and that sort of thing. But yeah, you want to make adjustments and be adaptable as you learn the course and learn each turn. It's all fluid as you go along.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, to the surprise of absolutely no one, I overthink all of this. So
I'm not surprised one bit.
No, I don't think any of our listeners should be. But so before I go to the track, I actually have a document where I will break the track down turn by turn by turn, exactly what to do, where to do it, what should be the key focus areas of the turn. Is it trying to hit the apex, or is it trying to maximize in speed or out speed or whatever it is, whatever the goal.
What's your source material for you? If you've never been there, where do you find a guide that tells you like, here's where I need to hit the gas? You do some Ross Bentley track maps or something like that? So
I do a survey. So sometimes I'll do the Ross Bentley track walks. Sometimes I'll do the Racers 360 track walks. There's another one. Mansell's son, I forgot the name of his
that's funny. That's not actually Nigel Mansell's son, but yeah, I know who you're talking about. His name is Mansell. He puts out great videos.
He does, and I think it's like 61 Racer 61 or something like that.
Yeah.
That's not Mansell's son. I always thought it was. All right, well, whatever.
It's not. I looked it up because I was like, this guy's so good. He's got to be related to Nigel Mansell. I went and looked it up. I was like, never mind.
All right, well, I thought he was, so it kind of made sense if he was. Well, sorry, sir. I didn't mean to insult your father. But those are kind of my 3 go-tos, and then sometimes I'll look for others. So
great sources, yeah.
What I'll try to do is I'll try to incorporate what they're thinking, and then I'll also try to incorporate a little bit of iRacing just to see it and feel it a little bit. And then when I'm in the car, I don't have to think about it anymore. I can kind of react to the traffic, react to the conditions, react to my car, because sometimes my car, I know this is going to come as a shock to everybody, sometimes our cars aren't perfect when we arrive at the track. I mean, I know you've never had that problem, Ben, but
try not to.
Yeah, it's not the goal, but sometimes you get there.
Yep.
And then the one that I'm really looking forward to is what about after you get out of the car? Is there any kind of review?
So let me go back real quick to what you said. So you're able to internalize a bunch of outside sources of people like, all right, this track, here's a sort of some track guide information. So you can internalize that and immediately apply it to what you're experiencing on track? Because I think that's novel. I haven't heard a lot of people say that they can really do that.
I didn't say I could do it. It's more of a I know what I should be doing.
Right, but it gives you a guide where you feel like, okay, I'm applying this directly to this course, and I feel more comfortable going in. So it gives you comfort and consistency going in, right?
Yes.
That's awesome. I haven't heard a lot of people say that they can do that, but I haven't been listed very well either. But yeah, it's really cool that you can do that. That's good to know.
Well, I just kind of approach wise, I think if I don't have the time to do that prep to go to a track, I don't have time to do the race, so I have to make time.
Right.
And the whole team has access to the file, and the whole team is able to review and see this. Does anybody look at it? No, but it's there. And it's also up on our website too. But and I do that track by track by track by track. And as we go, I try to update it with what we see with our car, because sometimes if Dion's got a guy racing an LMP car, he may break at the 3.5. Right. Whereas, for each of our cars, it may be at the 2 or maybe at the 4, depending on how good or bad our brakes are and how fast we're going. So, and we can kind of sit there and say, well, in the race truck, brake at the 4.
Sure.
But don't do a threshold brake. Do like a smooth kind of calm brake, and that way you don't upset the car. But in the Miata, you may be able to take it into the 2 and, just stand on it because it doesn't care.
Right.
So, and that way we kind of get an idea, and then we can communicate amongst the team. So that's kind of my goal.
Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. You sort of build a reference database, right?
Yeah, and everything gets thrown into when the rain comes, or when it's really cold or really hot. Things move. But as you hopefully do these things year after year, you start to kind of understand. It's like, hey, in the rain we do this, in the heat we do, maybe we take a little air out, or maybe we move.
We got a spring race coming up at Sears Point. It always rains in the spring at Sears Point. So you build some sort of tribal knowledge like that too, as far as the places you frequent, right?
Yep. But then what about when your stint's done? I mean, you do a little bit of talking to the next driver when you get out, I'm sure, and say, hey, the car number 23 is an idiot, or the
yeah, totally, yeah, definitely. You give all the warnings you can think of. You give to that next driver, because hopefully you're going to drive the car again later that weekend. So you want them to know everything that you learned, right? Yeah, exactly. So I mean, the one that sticks out in my head is when we were at Road Atlanta in the cold. It's 34 degrees and raining, and I can't remember if it was Vicky or Mental getting in the car. I said, now listen, when you're going up the hill after turn 1, it's a rainbow. It just, thanks.
It is just covered in oil.
It's a whole buffet and note.
Just don't go heavy and hard in there, because you were going to end up in the woods, not on the side of the grass, not in the wall. You're going to be in the woods. And,
right.
And I think it was Mental. I think he's like on the radio going, holy cow, it's a huge rainbow. So it was, interesting. But is there any kind of post-race or post-stint review that you kind of go through, or maybe somebody should go through?
You go first, Vicky.
I don't know. I'm going to let you go first.
All right.
Way to punt.
Yeah, this is going to be not a huge surprise, but unless something went really bad, I just jump out of the car like, that was great. But, as far as our own local team, we'll talk about how things went. We'll talk about, drivers, improving, or things that we liked that the car did or didn't do. We've had a couple of races that we were unaware that our rear brakes weren't adding anything to the effort. So we were a couple of races where some of our post-race review were like, man, the brakes didn't feel like anything like the test day. So some of that kind of post-race analysis is good. But also our team did that post-race analysis and then forgot about it to look at the brakes. So I think we did another race where our rear brakes weren't doing anything. So yes, definitely a serious, cogent post-race debrief can do a lot for your team. It's something that smart people do.
Yeah, I can say that our team doesn't do post-race briefing. We really don't. Usually it's a bit chaotic when people get off the track, and it's usually because something has happened to the car.
You're trying to pack up and leave, right? You're trying to get home. You got school the next day.
Well, no, I'm just talking about even the first day.
Oh yeah, okay.
Stints and stuff.
Yeah, that was one thing that that we've been trying to make a point of having, but usually when you have, in our instance, that we usually have a lot of people
Yeah.
and a
You have
lot
a
of
real
moving
village.
parts and a lot of extra going on. It's not an issue, say for instance, if we just had one car and 4 people. But now when you have 2 cars, 8 people, it's with family and teenagers and
It's what you should do, not what we do.
I know
Right.
it has been a challenge, and it has been brought up, I know at least twice, that we need to make a point of having a pre-race expectation meeting and then having
Morning.
a post-race meetings.
Morning meeting.
Right. The
And,
morning meeting.
but like, let's be honest with ourselves. Those are kind of things that you achieve once you're a pretty well-developed team. Like, hey guys, let's have our pre-race devotional. Let's get together. Let's get our heads in here. Okay, well, you're so squared away. We've got an hour and a half for this. Let's who wants to do a homily? Like, nobody's. I mean, really, like, I don't know. At least for us in our team, we've got a bunch of us have little kids. We're lucky to even show up at the track at the same time. Most of the time, we don't. Somebody's always coming in late, like, my flight came in. I mean, there's always something. So we're not as organized as we'd like to be. But that's the ideal would be to have a post race debrief where you talk about what worked well, what didn't work. Maybe you tried something new that you thought was going to be dynamite. It just went off like a poop sandwich. So there's always stuff to talk about. Definitely, and that's what smart, evolved teams do. And it's not the reality for all of us. Because a lot of us, this is our escape. The amount of time we get transporting the junk to the track, being at the track, and just transporting it back and barely dropping it off is going to barely make me able to make it to work the next day. So yeah, the smart way to do that is to be pretty disciplined and deliberate about that. But it's not always the reality either.
Yeah, we've had issues just trying to get some people out of bed on time.
Sure. Yeah. The full spectrum in endurance racing. So if you're so evolved that you're hitting on all cylinders and you're able to have like a calm debrief where you get the whole team together and everybody plays putt, you light some incense and talk about how it went. Great. That's not many teams that I know, but they're out there. That's the
They
ones who
usually
really
got their head in the car like right after the race, and they haven't emerged until like 11 o'clock at night.
Right. Yep. So it's a great thing to aspire to. It's not what we do. I wish we did.
All right. So we've all got some stuff to work on here, and we can get better with time. So
Absolutely.
all right. Thank you, guys.